Okay, so we're diving deep today into some excerpts you sent in from Cassandra Clare's Clockwork Angel.
Yeah, this is a great one to dig into.
It is, and for anybody who maybe hasn't read it yet, Clockwork Angel takes us to Victorian London and throws us right into the mystery. With Tessa Gray, she's the 16-year-old orphan, and she's searching desperately for her brother Nate, who has disappeared.
Right from the start, you just get pulled into this whole other world.
A hidden world, right? A supernatural underworld. And on top of trying to find her brother, she discovers this pretty extraordinary thing about herself.
Yeah, she finds out she's a Downworlder, which already, that's a huge revelation.
Right, it is. A downworlder with this crazy ability to shapeshift. She can basically become anyone she wants.
And as if that wasn't enough, then she starts running into Shadowhunters, demon hunters with their own whole society and rules and all sorts of other supernatural creatures that are living right under everyone's nose.
Living in the shadows of London, exactly. And you requested we really try and understand these initial mysteries that Claire sets up in these opening excerpts. How does she build this world right from the start? What are the big questions she throws at us? So that's our mission today.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
All right, so Tessa's arrival in London, it's not exactly a warm welcome.
No, it's definitely not.
She's there because her brother Nate has vanished, and instead of, finding someone to help her, she's met by these two really creepy figures, Mrs. Dark and Mrs. Black.
Yeah, they're super unsettling right from the start.
Oh, absolutely. And there's this whole thing with the prearranged trunk. It's almost as if they were expecting her and knew exactly what she would bring.
Like it was all planned out in advance.
Exactly. And that really sets the tone right. Something is off. Something is deliberately being orchestrated.
And that feeling of unease just gets amped up when we hear about the Pandemonium Club.
Oh, yeah, the Pandemonium Club.
Like even the name itself screams trouble, right?
Absolutely, it does.
And then you've got the carriage, this symbol of this crazy place marked with an Ouroboros.
Two snakes biting each other's tails.
Right, exactly. That's a one. And that's not just some random creepy image. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol. It represents all these things, cycles infinity, and get this hidden knowledge.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's appearing so early on. That's going to be significant.
Right. It's like Claire's giving us a little clue that this club, what it represents, is going to be super important to the whole mystery we're unraveling.
So maybe that whole cycle thing could even foreshadow things that'll happen to Tessa, like betrayals or how she transforms.
Yeah, and the whole hidden knowledge piece that could definitely tie into the secrets surrounding Tessa herself. You know, who she really is, where her powers come from, the truth about this supernatural world.
Okay, so that's creepy enough, but then things go from unsettling to straight up frightening when Tessa gets taken to the dark house.
Right, the aptly named Dark House.
For real, and her only company is the silent girl Miranda with these weird frog-like eyes.
Fiercely creepy kid, right?
So creepy, and it's just such an isolating, oppressive environment. The only thing Tessa really seems to cling to is that Clockwork Angel pendant she wears.
That pendant really stands out, doesn't it?
It does, in this really restrictive, scary place. It's like her only connection to her life before all of this.
Yeah, it's a symbol of hope, maybe even protection. We should definitely keep an eye on it as we go through the story.
Sure. So Tessa's basically trapped in this house, and we start to see just how manipulative Mrs. Black and Mrs. Dark really are. They're holding Nate captive, and they use him to force Tessa into doing these changes.
And this is where it gets super interesting, right? These forced transformations.
Yeah, the way it's described is like this incredibly intimate and frightening experience.
Almost like a violation.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're violating her very being, and the first example we see is when they make her change into this girl, Emma Bayliss.
It's not just like a surface level disguise either. It's like Tessa's actually channeling something of that person, even her voice.
That's so disturbing.
It is. And the language that's used to describe the whole change, it really emphasizes how profound and unsettling it is.
Intimate and frightening, like you said.
Exactly. Those words, they stick with you. And the detail about the girl whose form she takes, speaking through her, it shows how little control Tessa has at this point. And it hints at what this power could do to her psychologically. You know, how it could mess with her sense of self.
But even though she's going through this terrible ordeal, we also see how resilient Tessa is.
Oh, absolutely. She's tough.
She's so determined not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her breakdown, not to cry in front of them. It says a lot about her inner strength.
Oh, for sure. She's a fighter.
She is. So she manages to escape from the dark house, but that doesn't mean she's safe. She has this terrifying encounter with the Dark Sisters coachman, and he's got this waxy skin, these bulging eyes. He's obviously not human.
Nope, not human at all. And that's when the lines really start to blur for Tessa, don't they?
Yeah.
Between the normal world she knew and this whole other reality.
Absolutely, and just when things seem their worst, Will Herondale makes his grand entrance.
Talk about an entrance, right?
He just bursts onto the scene, all flashing blade and cryptic warnings about a Shax demon.
Yeah, like, who is this guy?
Right. At first, it's not even clear if he's there to help her or if he's somehow part of this dark world himself.
That ambiguity is what keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's a great hook.
Totally keeps you guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the mention of a Shax demon, which just adds another layer to the whole supernatural threat.
Right. It makes you wonder what other kinds of dangers are lurking in the shadows.
And then they find that thin, blood-stained misericord with guess what on it?
The Ouroboros, of course.
Of course. So that firmly connects this whole crazy alley encounter back to the Pandemonium Club.
Yeah, it's like Claire showing us that there's this much bigger conspiracy at play.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to that club.
And then there's Will's behavior afterwards. It's so confusing.
Oh, yeah, he's a total enigma.
He is, one minute he's acting like her savior, and the next he's being super cryptic, making these weird remarks about Downworld, like he knows a ton, but he's only giving her these little pieces.
And the word Downworld, that's our first real introduction to this whole other community, beyond just demons.
Right. It's like, okay, there are other beings out there living hidden lives. What are they like? What's their relationship to humans?
And more importantly, what's their relationship to the Shadowhunters?
So many questions. So then we get to the Shadowhunter Institute, and it's this grand Gothic building, but for Tessa, it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah, she's just thrown into this whole new world.
She is, and they're all these new people, Charlotte and Henry Branwell, Jem Carstairs, Jessamine.
And we get these really quick but distinct first impressions of each of them.
Totally. Charlotte seems like she's in charge, the strong, capable leader.
Yeah.
Henry is the eccentric inventor. Jem is more reserved, like he's carrying some kind of secret burden. And Jessamine is just unhappy with the whole Shadowhunter life.
It's like Claire is setting up the internal dynamics of the Institute right away.
Yeah, you can already sense there are going to be conflicts and tension within the group. And it's here that Tessa and we as readers start to learn the basics about Shadowhunters.
Right, their whole purpose is to hunt demons.
They've got their own society, their own rules, their own abilities.
And they have this governing body called the Clave, which we'll hear more about later.
So Tessa learns about the Codex, which is basically the Shadowhunter Bible.
So they got all their history laws, rituals, everything.
And then there are the marks, those intricate runes all over their skin.
The runes are supposed to give them protection and all kinds of cool abilities.
And they use a steel to apply the marks. It's a whole new system of magic and power that's being revealed.
Definitely a key part of the world building.
But even within the supposed safety of the Institute, Will's behavior is still all over the place.
Oh, yeah. He's still a mystery.
One minute he's rescuing her, the next he's giving her these cryptic warnings. Then he's cold and distant. He even denies being an orphan, even though earlier it seemed like he was. And he says he hates poetry, which seems to contradict some earlier scenes.
It's a total emotional roller coaster for Tessa. And for us, too.
Seriously, what is his deal? What's he hiding?
Right, that denial about being an orphan and the poetry thing, it all points to some kind of troubled past, like he's putting on a front.
Meanwhile, Charlotte is still focused on finding Nate. She promises Tessa she'll help, and their first lead is to investigate Nate's old workplace.
And she mentions the Downworld gossip networks.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It shows that all these different groups, the Shadowhunters, the demons, the Downworlders, they're all connected somehow.
They're all living in this hidden London side by side.
Right. So then Will takes Tessa on this tour of the Institute, and it's not your average tour.
More like a haunted house tour.
Totally. He shows her all these dangerous, crazy things. Rooms with trapped demons, a weapons room where the weapons are apparently sentient, and even rooms that just open into thin air.
So bizarre.
It's like he's testing her or maybe trying to warn her in his own weird way about the dangers of this world she's now a part of.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to see what she's made of.
And that Ouroboros symbol shows up again, this time on this mysterious box called the Pyxis. And Will totally freaks out when Tessa tries to touch it.
Like, really freaks out.
Yeah, it's clear that this box is super important and probably dangerous.
Maybe Will knows something about it, or at least suspects it's connected to the Dark Sisters or the whole mystery.
We also get more insight into Jessamine, and she makes it very clear she hates being a Shadowhunter.
Yeah, she wants a normal life. Marriage, kids, no demon hunting.
It's interesting, right? Because it shows that not every Shadowhunter is happy with their destiny.
It adds this element of conflict to their world.
Exactly. So the investigation leads them back to the abandoned dark house, which is described as super creepy and sinister.
And they find something really disturbing in there. A woman made of copper wire with a single dangling eye.
That is messed up.
It really makes you wonder about Henry and his inventions.
Right, he's not just some harmless tinkerer. His stuff could be dangerous.
So their next lead is to talk to Mr. Mortmain, Nate's old employer.
And he's not exactly helpful.
Nope, he's being super evasive.
But Charlotte uses those persuasion runes, which are another cool Shadowhunter ability, and she manages to get some information out of him.
And he has this telling flicker of fear when they mention Nate leaving his job.
Yeah, that's a big red flag. He knows more than he's letting on.
Definitely. And then the connections start falling into place.
They realize that Mortmain is connected to the weird mechanical tools they found on the Dark Sisters cellar.
And then Henry examines this mechanical heart, which has De Quincy's mark on it.
A big Q with a little D inside.
And that mark connects De Quincy, who's a powerful Downworlder in charge of the vampires, to the Dark Sisters, and to the mysterious Magister.
So the plot thickens.
It does. It really does.
We get our first glimpse into the Shadowhunter world's internal politics at an enclave meeting, and right away there's tension with the introduction of Gabriel Lightwood.
Yeah, he and Will clearly have some bad blood between them.
Oh yeah, Gabriel makes these nasty remarks about Will's character, and Jem immediately jumps in to defend his parabatai.
Parabatai, that's that super strong bond between Shadowhunter partners, like brothers almost.
Right, so this whole exchange, it suggests that Will has a troubled past and that not everyone thinks highly of him.
It makes you wonder what he's done.
And of course, just when things are getting serious, Henry has to create chaos with one of his inventions.
Typical Henry.
Seriously, Benedict Lightwood is not amused.
Nope, not at all. It's kind of funny, but it also shows that not every Shadowhunter is super serious all the time.
And throughout all of this, the mystery of the Magister remains.
Right. Who is this person? What do they want?
No one seems to know for sure.
A search for answers leads them to Lady Camille Belcourt.
A vampire.
Yes, and we learn that vampires can't enter hallowed ground without an invitation.
Which is a pretty big limitation.
It is, and Camille makes this surprising offer to help the Shadowhunters. She's particularly interested in Tessa's shape-shifting powers.
Which suggests that Tessa's ability is even more significant than we thought.
Definitely. It could be a valuable asset, or even a dangerous one.
And Camille has her own reasons for wanting to help. She wants revenge on De Quincy for killing her werewolf lover.
Talk about a motive.
Right. So we learn that there's this forbidden love thing going on between vampires and werewolves.
Night children and moon's children.
Which adds a whole other layer to the downworld politics. It's not just about species, there are other factors at play.
Yeah, love revenge, it all gets messy.
And Tessa actually tries to change into Camille. And she experiences this intense coldness, the lack of a heartbeat.
It's a really powerful way for her to understand how different she is from these other supernatural creatures.
Then things take a dark turn when Nate confesses that he's in deep with the Pandemonium Club and owes a ton of money to De Quincy.
Yeah, that's a huge betrayal for Tessa.
It is, and it gets worse, because we learn that De Quincy has been manipulating Nate using his debts to get to Tessa.
That question he asks Nate, what about your sister? That's chilling.
It's so creepy, and it shows just how far De Quincy is willing to go.
And then Nate overhears the Dark Sisters talking about a binding spell and their plan to destroy the Nephilim.
The Shadowhunters.
Right, so now we know the real scope of the threat.
They're not just after Tessa, they want to wipe out all Shadowhunters.
And all of this leads to the attack on the Institute.
Mortmain shows up with these terrifying clockwork automatons, and Nate sides with him.
That's got to be heartbreaking for Tessa.
Oh, absolutely. It's a complete betrayal.
The battle is brutal. The automatons are described as totally inhuman, and Agatha the cook is killed.
Which shows the real cost of this conflict.
Yeah, it's not just a game. People are dying.
And we find out that Mrs. Dark is connected to the automatons, and the Magister, she wants revenge for her sister's death.
So there's her motive.
And then this crazy revelation that the Magister was planning to use Jem's blood to break the Institute's defenses.
Jem's blood specifically.
Yeah, it's like his blood is the key.
Will acts fast, though, and destroys a chandelier to stop Mrs. Dark's magic.
He's a quick thinker.
In the final confrontation, Nate goes after Tessa, and we see his true colors. He's full of resentment and ambition.
It's sad to see how twisted he's become.
And then Mortmain drops that bombshell. If it were not for me, you would not exist.
What does that even mean?
It's huge, right? It connects Mortmain to Tessa's very existence.
So many questions about her origins and her powers.
Mortmain demands Tessa change, But she refuses, and then she does this amazing thing. She pretends to be dead.
She changes into a gunshot victim.
So clever.
It's a brilliant move, and she completely fools Mortmain.
And in that moment, she realizes the true extent of her power.
It's a real turning point for her.
But Mortmain gets away.
Which means the danger isn't over.
Nope, not by a long shot.
They capture Nate, but his betrayal really hurts.
And Charlotte has to explain everything to the Clave.
She's not happy about it.
And Will's reaction to Tessa's survival, it's weird.
Yeah, there's relief, but also this coldness, and he starts quoting these dark poems about London.
It's like he's happy she's alive, but also terrified.
And then he says these strange things about warlocks and children.
It's really unsettling.
So many questions about Will.
He's a puzzle.
He is. So we've uncovered a ton of mysteries. The Magister's identity, Mortmain's plans, Tessa's powers and parentage, the relationships within the Institute. It's a lot to take in.
And Claire throws all these twists and surprises at us right away.
Tessa's powers.
Yeah.
Nate's betrayal, Mortmain's connection to Tessa, the Shadowhunter world. It's all so captivating.
This deep dive has just scratched the surface.
If you want the full story, you've got to read Clockwork Angel.
It's a wild ride.
It is. And we'll leave you with this thought. If Tessa can become anyone she wants, who is she really at her core?
What does it mean to have a power that lets you take on the essence of others?
What does it say about identity and belonging in this supernatural world?
Definitely something to think about.
It is.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time.